Do you hear anything?
Sorry. We were on mute. Did not check that before we started.
I can hear, yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll start over since we were muted there. Thanks everybody for joining us for February 22nd, 2023 regular council meeting. Just like to start by respectfully acknowledging that the land in which this meeting is conducted is the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. Our country is once again reeling at the tragic announcement of a former Indian residential school, and this tragic news hits close to home. The confirmation of 67 student deaths, plus the discovery of 17 suspected graves at the site of the former Alberni residential school in the territory of the Shuswap First Nation is heartbreaking. As many historical records are missing, destroyed, or not available, the true number of lives lost will never fully be known. The school is located a few kilometers north of Port Alberni and operated from 1900 to 1973. Its impacts were far-reaching. Students attending the school came from at least 70 First Nation communities from across Vancouver Island and BC. While many serious abuses were inflicted on children at the school are well documented, countless other stories are only now coming to light. The school closed 50 years ago, but the damage and intergenerational trauma it inflicted resonates deeply to this day. We must face the horror of these discoveries, the sad reality of the residential school system across Canada, and other destructive systems inflicted by colonial institution onto Indigenous peoples. Each missing child represents a personal tragedy, a devastated family, and a young life's full potential lost. We mourn and honor all those who did not survive and the damaging legacy inflicted on the survivors. The goal of residential schools was to kill the Indian in the child, with the last one closing in 1996. We'll now pause for a minute of silence in honor of the lost children and the survivors, families, and communities. Let us reflect on the dark legacy of all residential schools in Canada. Thank you. Councillor Jolicoeur, were you going to make a statement?
Yeah, and thank you, Mayor. And just in follow-up to the heartbreaking news of systemic racism and the Indigenous genocidal policies of Canada, it's, I think, timely for us to also recognize that February is Black History Month, which is an opportunity for us to honor and celebrate and reflect on the stories, experiences, and accomplishments of Black Canadians and British Columbians. And so for Black History Month, we remember the path of the Black community members to BC, first arriving in 1858, seeking a place free of oppression where they could make a life for themselves and their families. And since that time, Black communities with diverse histories and cultures have played a vital role in shaping this province and the community of Comox Valley and Courtenay. Unfortunately, as a society that is based on white supremacy, members of the Black community are all too often met with the same oppression and racism here in BC that they had been trying to escape. History has shown time and time again that overt acts of racism, from the destruction of Hogan's Alley in Vancouver in 1972 to the ongoing systemic and institutional racism in government programs and services, Black British Columbians continue to face unjust barriers in their daily lives. As a community in Comox Valley, members of the Black community continue to face both overt and covert acts of racism. The city of Courtenay has committed to anti-racism with an initial training for senior staff, mayor, and council that took place in 2022. And this work to support addressing discrimination in all its forms, including racism, is ongoing, albeit challenging. It is a critical, important work to reduce harms related to institutional, systemic, and interpersonal racism within the workplace and in our service and program delivery for citizens of Courtenay. And so the council is committed to ensuring that this work continues. And I invite, for those who are interested in learning a little bit more about Black History Month in BC, you can check out www.bcblackhistory.ca. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jolicoeur. Having said that, we're going to amend the agenda and we're going to remove item 10.2. If everybody's in favor of that. All those in favor? Thank you. And we have the adoption of minutes, and they have been updated. Councillor Jolicoeur had a I think I'll let you speak, Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, just for council's review, there was an error found in item under item 7.4.3. I spoke to staff and the corrected version is on your table in front of you in the printed copy. So looking to amend the minutes as presented.
Excellent. And I believe it's been done by staff. So they agreed with the error you found. And so it's been done. So I don't think we need to make a motion to amend it to your, is it useful? Adopt as amended. Yeah.
So I'll move to adopt the minutes as amended.
Excellent. Any further errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And we have a delegation from the Comox Valley Arts. I think we have Jennifer Casey and Juliana Bedoya. Does that sound correct? Excellent. Turn on your microphone. And the podium is yours.
Thanks. I understand that we have to say slide when it goes, right? That's should I wink
Only
at
if you want it to move.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for hearing us this afternoon. I'm Jennifer Casey, Executive Director of Comox Valley Arts. We're here for two purposes today, mainly to provide you with an update on our organization, but also to say thank you for your support for our fee-for-service agreement, which gives us 5-year support, which means the world to us. So this presentation is not asking for funds. It's really a thank you. Next slide, please. You probably all know Comox Valley Arts, but in case you don't, our mission is to bring more arts experiences to people, residents and visitors alike. We are 55 years old, in fact, one of the first nonprofits in the Valley. Today, we are positioning Jedi and decolonization work as central to what we do. We are a new staff. I am brand new to my position as Executive Director as of October. Juliana is new to her position as Community Engagement Director. We have a new board and our programs are also changing. So quite a bit of flux has been happening behind the scenes. Just next slide, please. Thank you. Well, a few stats that I wanted to hit you guys with. So we work for the 5,000 plus identified creatives in the region. This is a growing number of creative artists and cultural producers. Our programs have had growth in participation and engagement. For example, our most recently completed 30-day drawing challenge had 30% growth in participation, which was great. Programs that happened before our time, including the practice program, had a robust online presence of over 10,000 viewers. We are a very small staff, so you're looking at it basically right now. So we have to leverage regional partnerships. We have 52 regional partners that we work with to deliver our programs. We also disperse funds to artists, and last fiscal, we gave out $15,000 to artists in the Valley. We're working on figuring out a way to make that a more equitable process through a micro grant program, we're hoping, so that everybody has a chance to know when those funds are available to access. So I don't have too much time. I know I have 10 minutes, so I won't talk too much in detail there, but that's something to look forward to. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. In order to flesh out more broadly the programs that we've been involved in our short period of time of working at Comox Valley Arts, I'm going to pass the mic over to Juliana to talk about some stuff that we've had up our sleeves.
Thanks, Jenny. My name is Juliana Bedoya. I am the Community Engagement Director and behind the program design of CV Arts. As you know, we offer a wide variety of programs, including festivals, markets, and exhibitions. And as new staff, we have been restructuring, as Jenny said, all our programs by assessing relevancy, evaluating impact, and growing our community partnerships. Here on our slide, as you can see, we can see some programs that we have recently delivered that show evidence of how, as an arts organization, we want to move past the role of entertainers and maximize the power of the arts to change narratives and as a vehicle for community reflection and social change. So for the first bubble, Family Day, it was an event in partnership with the City of Courtenay. We created 100 family connection kits that were distributed last Monday at the Louis Center and welcomed many families, documenting the growing diversity of the Valley, as we took photos of them in our awkward family photo booth to creatively enhance and celebrate family connection. It was fabulous. The YQQ Mindful Travel is the next bubble to the right. This is an ongoing partnership with the Comox Airport that has a big reach across the Central Island region. We're working hard from a curatorial front to showcase more diversity and to invite more reflection as we create our calls for submission. The 30-day drawing challenge that Jenny mentioned is a program with huge reach beyond our region, even internationally. This year, we partnered with the City of Courtenay, the Art Gallery, and the regional libraries to expand our in-person community engagement and we set up different drawing stations at their different facilities. The Moonlight and Magic, as you know, the big event downtown Courtenay in November, we worked in partnership with the Downtown Courtenay BIA. We created an event that not only showcased Queenish the Glacier from an Indigenous storytelling lens, but also invited community participation and reflection around climate change issues to move from an eco-anxiety to hopeful action. I'll pass it on to Jenny to continue the presentation. Thank you.
And next slide, please. One other program I just want to touch on is the Central Island Arts Guide and Studio Tour. So this is an online listing of over 100 artists, studios, and there's usually a studio tour, although the pandemic put kind of the kibosh to that. We are very excited to announce that that's going to be happening this May. So mark your calendars, May 20th through the 22nd. Our goal is to have 100 studios again listed there. So that's another regional program that we do. There's a little picture of the map there. You can see it's actually a 180-kilometer long studio tour. We're billing it more of a weekend of celebrating the arts in partnership with other events that are happening that weekend. So yeah, something to look forward to there. Next slide. Before we talk about 3 exciting pilot projects that we are really amped about, I do want to talk a little bit about the shared values and goals of Comox Valley Arts and the new OCP. First and foremost, the 4 big cardinal directions of reconciliation, climate action, community well-being, and equity are front and center to the work that we see Comox Valley Arts doing too. We know that our arts organization can help the city deliver on its goals within arts and culture. I read through the arts and culture section and pulled out verbatim 4 points, 4 goals there that are directly aligned with the work that we see we're doing moving forward. One of the major gaps that document identified is the missing regional arts center that we have here in the Comox Valley. We believe that maybe not this year or within the next 5 years, but we believe that our organization can help achieve that. And we would love to see it happen. Next slide, please. So as we are thinking ahead, we are working really hard to streamline our programs. We're setting big picture goals that align with the needs of the city. We're reverse engineering from these long horizon goals to think about programmatic streamlining. Can I see the next slide? Thank you. So this is, I don't want to go into too much detail here, but this is a snapshot of how we're internally streamlining and organizing our work. So you'll see here that we've taken like a scatter shot of programmatic offerings of the past, trimmed out what no longer makes sense given our programmatic direction, value structure, and the changes that we're seeking to make. And we're putting the social impact of arts front and center. This is a framework that is clear, it is concise, and it is forward-looking. Next slide, please. So while we're thinking ahead and looking forward and considering we have 10 short minutes up here to talk to you guys, I want to talk about 3 exciting pilot projects. And the first is the Digital Creation Hub. This is about providing accessibility to digital tools for art making. It is in the test phase right now, and we are launching a public pilot project next month. So we're eliminating the cost barrier to many artists to expensive digital tools, cameras, recording gear, video equipment, and software that will allow artists to really be effective in 2023 when it's no longer enough to just post a picture of your painting to Instagram. You have to do a lot more now. Can I see the next slide? The next pilot program that we're very excited to share with you guys is called Arts Plus Land. This summer, we're hoping to do a small teaser with 1 or 2 artists for a larger showcasing in 2024. This is a place-based art experience outdoors. Artists will come to install surprising works in spaces outside of the white cube of a gallery. Imagine wandering through a forest or a field and seeing surprising art encounters, responding to the landscape. And how fantastic would it be to leverage existing interest here in the Valley for parks and green spaces, but also bring the arts to populations that are too afraid to go into a gallery or don't really like theater. So we're excited to see where this project can go, and we believe that it has a real pull provincially to bring in some big names. Next slide, please. This is for Evan up here, this slide. So we have a trailer, as Evan knows intimately well, and we want to quite literally bring arts and cultural experiences to the rural communities in the region where no cultural resources or amenities exist. And what we're going to do is brand this beautiful trailer with a bunch of colorful dots, slam it full with a lot of art making gear, partner with artists and arts organizations around Vancouver Island, and drive it around town. So look for our trailer this summer and come say hi if you see it. We're also going to have the markets this summer, and we're thinking the trailer could park out front and deliver some community art making there as well. So these 3 pilots that we just shared with you are examples of how we're working to engage participation and access to art making. And they fit within our long horizon goals of that art center. You can think about the art center as maybe the mothership, and then this trailer is like the little shuttle. I can tell there are no Star Trek fans here, but that's okay. Next slide, please. So I know we're running low on time, so I just want to say that we're not making these decisions or we're doing any of this work in a vacuum at all. You guys know pretty well the city's involved in the cultural planning process right now. You may not know that there is a regional tourism plan happening right now with not nearly enough focus on the arts at all, nor the recognition of the economic power that the arts and culture sector holds. Comox Valley Arts is sitting at that table and making sure that we are the voice for the cultural makers and creatives in the region. Next slide. So let's just end on dream big dreams. We'd love to see this regional arts center happen, but in the time being, we're going to continue to do our streamlining and deliver the programs that align when you reverse engineer off of that long horizon goal. We're really excited about the alignment that the OCP has with our organizational goals, and think that this is going to be a really great time to make some exciting work happen. Can I see my last slide? Thank you. So this is just a short snapshot on our funding. And this is where I say thank you. Having 5-year fee-for-service agreement allows us to be proactive instead of reactive. 5 years of funding, knowing where that's coming from, helps us sleep at night. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I also wanted to just say thank you to the province because they are also big time funders, and let you know that we were successful in getting $5,000 from the regional district. Thank you, regional district, to help launch those pilot projects that we shared with you. So previously we were given 5,200 from the regional district, and now we're at the 10,200 level. We are working on increasing our earned revenue streams through the Central Island Arts Guide, as well as the Digital Creation Hub pilot, which will have a fee structure attached to it. So all in all, I'll just end with a big thank you. That's our organizational update. And we appreciate the time and your unwavering support of the arts.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And while I wait for some questions to be generated, I just really want to comment that it's been 20 years now since my car broke down and I ended up walking around the streets of Courtenay for a day. And I was really blown away at the creatives and sort of what I saw at that point is some of the things that were happening. And I believe in our 2018 election, actually the arts community came out in a big way and actually showed the stats, just showing what a high saturation of artists that we have here in the Comox Valley, one of the highest in the province, I believe. And as you said, huge impacts from social, cultural, economic, like just so many ways that they really impact our community in a positive way. So really just want to acknowledge that and say thanks. And a light has come on. Councillor Morin.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We get really excited about all delegations, it seems, on this council. We've been trying to kind of monitor ourselves because we always want to say 100 thank yous to the people who come to see us. But I do have a question, but just a comment about the mobile unit many years ago. Emily Carr used to do, School of Art used to do a mobile trailer that would kind of tour the province. And when I was in high school, I was able to take part in their mobile printmaking. And I still have those prints actually. They're a little bit faded because I probably didn't take the best care of them, keeping them out of sun. But anyway, I still have those prints from way back. But on the note of the mobile, the trailer, which of course I love the idea. Do you have sort of some ideas of where you're going to go? Are you going to go to places where there might be some existing programming? I'm thinking about youth and stuff like that during the summer, or is it just kind of like one of those things that the radio station does where, can you guess where we are now? And you do a photograph or something.
That's a really good question. Yes, I feel like we found out about our boost of funding last week and are able to really start realizing that dream now. We have a number of ideas on how we would identify those places, but that's definitely a critical question. One idea was to put the word out there for where the need was and try to make some calls and see who's interested and work from there at first. Did you have any other? We were talking today. Also funny that you mentioned the printmaking thing because we literally brought up printmaking. Oh, we should have a printmaking shop in the trailer. So definitely on the same page there.
I just want to add that we're also trying to create almost like a tinker truck. Like maybe you can help us name it because we're playing with different names, like the tinkering traveling trailer. I don't know. Sorry, and I lost my train of thought. No. I just wanted to say that we want to go to where there's need so people can actually book it, but also have a presence in different community events. So kind of in both ways.
Kind of a combination.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, my grandson and I participated in 30-day drawing challenge, and that was a real highlight in our house. So thanks so much for all that you do.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Councillor Morin and Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I'm looking forward to seeing the trailer, maybe not where it currently is, which may or may not be at my place and out in the community. I just wanted to say welcome to the community, both of you as leaders in the positions that you're in. And I know that you spoke about the transition and really happy to see it kind of all laid out. So just welcome to that. And thank you for your passion in this work. It was kind of spoken about, but I'm wondering if you can kind of share some examples for folks in the community who might be interested in ways in which you're addressing reconciliation. I know it was kind of addressed at the beginning, but if, and you mentioned our OCP and the alignment there. So I'm wondering if you can kind of share some of the programmatic perspectives of reconciliation and city arts.
Well, at this point, I think that is like Jedi decolonization and reconciliation, I think are the main pillars that are helping us reassess, evaluate each one of our programs. I think representation is one of the biggest ones. Diversity in representation, which we at this point we think there's lack of that, and we're trying to make our calls more inclusive. From the language, we're redoing pretty much our content to be more inclusive and reflect reconciliation as something that we're addressing constantly. So I think we're at baby steps of being able to deliver something more more evidence of that in a tangible way. But I think that just the change of mindset and the readdressing like all our content and all our program structure, sorry, everything we do is what we're doing at this point as being new stuff, being almost assessing what has been done in that sense. Where are we at? And moving forward, what we're going to do is basically where we're at. So
I would also add that the way in which we engaged artists in the past was for a specific, very white artist. And the way that we're seeking to work for artists that don't fit within that demographic to be more representative involves approaching it in a completely different way. This is more on an individual basis, phone calls, deep personal connections, and that work takes trust, and trust takes time.
And on that note, what Jenny's saying, if I can add, that's exactly what we're doing is trust building, relationship building is exactly what we're doing. That's the phase where we are at right now.
Thank you for your question.
Excellent. That seems like all the questions. And as Councilor Morin mentioned, I'm sure there's many things we'd like to say, but on behalf of council, again, thanks again for your presentation tonight, and really looking forward to things that are coming down the pipe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll have Margaret Waterton, I believe, regarding Lerwick Forest.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, good evening. I'm Margaret Waterton and I live at 2620 Sheraton Road. My property that I bought in the late 1970s runs parallel to Lerwick Forest. The last decade, particularly since the construction of the Greenway and the bike path, has increased the number of users of Lerwick Forest exponentially. This has, by extension, put a lot of extra pressure on the nature park. And while 99% of the people who use the park are very considerate, respectful, and understand the importance of conservation of this natural resource, the remaining 1%, unfortunately, seem to want to bend the vegetation and the trails to their own personal play area. As a result, this is degrading the infrastructure that's integral to the importance of this dwindling green space. I have some photographs, or we will see some photographs after, and I'll be happy to go over them after I've just finished this presentation, and then maybe we can have a couple of questions if you want. We all know that climate change is advancing rapidly and nature conservation is essential to confront the effects. And while Lerwick Forest is but a tiny segment in the whole global ecosystem, the difficulty is that when you have the destruction of one little organism, it undermines the ecosystem globally. And while everything is connected, what we want to do is we want to ask, how can we collectively join together to reverse the degradation of our fragile park that we treasure so much? On behalf of the ad hoc group, the Friends of Lerwick Woods, I am here tonight to ask for your permission, or to ask you to request your approval of our plans. We have 3 objectives, and I'll just read them so I don't mess up here. Our first objective is to implement a plan that increases forest knowledge, respect, and understanding for Lerwick Wood through community involvement and education, and using the guidelines of the City of Courtenay's Urban Forest Strategy Plan. The second is to involve the community, neighborhood, and frequent visitors to Lerwick Forest in protecting and remediating the integrity of the rapidly deteriorating wildness of the flora and fauna that call this area home. With emphasis on young people because they already know the necessity of preservation and sustainability of their dwindling ecological surroundings. Thirdly, by working with the city, supplying educational materials and facilitating participation, we, the Friends of Lerwick Wood, hope to reverse the destructive trends and encourage pride and ownership in this wonderful green space. And how would we do that? Well, we'd like to erect a shelf by Ferry Lane that's constructed by the children to suggest things that would be better to decorate with. And in the slides, you'll see there's a sign that of yours making that talks about natural resources as opposed to the dollar store plastic, which is really prevalent now. There would be educational material incorporated, informing the children of the downfalls to the fairies, to the flora and the fauna of using environmentally unfriendly items, and sparkle and rhinestones are only just two examples. We'd like to construct a small native demonstration garden near the entrance beside the parking area, and that would be at the end of Sheridan Road. Install a bat box, a mason bee condo, and a couple of real bird houses. We'd like to erect a lending library beside the garden that contained only environmental and relevant books. So bird and plant identification, hiking guides, outdoor things to do in the Comox Valley, predominantly aimed at young people, but it would be a variety. And who will participate? Well, ideally the City of Courtenay staff and your wonderful Shane Tilpa and his great team that work together, and young people of Sheridan and Cummings Road, Evans Place and the surrounding neighborhoods, Friends of Lerwick Woods, residents of the above neighborhood, and well-known visitors who frequent the forest. So what would we like you, the city, to do? Well, we're hoping that you'll allocate area or areas to erect animal boxes, plant the native garden, and erect the library and information center, or displays. We'd like input from Shane and his company and any other vested interest from the city. We'd like soil for the garden because I believe your actual facility has the proper kind of soil. And we'd like to allow time for staff to guide children to create sustainable creations and attend weekly half-hour education workshops. This in the summer, of course, and we usually have kindergarten classes and daycares that are coming all the time. So we have a captive audience. And just listening to Jenny and Julia's presentation, it would be great to have your little band outside that they could also participate. And material costs, and there will be some, but fear not, because once you grant us approval, I will be applying through the Comox Valley Foundation through their Neighborhood Small Grants Program for monies to fund purchases required to construct and implement our objectives and for supplies and educational material. Mr. Mayor and councillors, it is time to invest in people, to invest in nature. The UN has declared this decade is dedicated to building a strong, broad-based global movement to ramp up restoration and put the world on track for a sustainable future. That will include building political momentum for restoration, as well as thousands of initiatives on the ground. Every day, every company, every country, every individual, and every organization has a role to play. And while it is important to think globally, it is imperative to act locally. In keeping with the UN declaration, the City of Courtenay's own urban forest strategy plan suggests that there states the desire for community involvement. And for your references, I make page 78 to page 82, and specifically page 91. So ladies and gentlemen, given all that, here we are. So if we could have the photographs, I'll show you why I'm distressed at times. The first one on the left is your sign. And basically what it asked for is respect for the fairies and using natural products to build any presentations. As you can see, the next three are showing how it doesn't adhere to what your request is. The bottom one on the right-hand side shows one of the fairy homes in state of deterioration. These little structures are covered by rhinestones and sparkle and glitter and I mean, just all kinds of things, paper stickers. And what happens is they fall all over the ground. So not only is that ecologically not responsible, but who knows how many little squirrels, little birds have picked up these shiny things and taken them back to feed their babies. Now I'm being exaggerating, of course, but. And so the next slide, please. That's the bottom of Fairy Lane, furthest away from Sheridan. That was a huge tree that fell after I moved here. And you can see on the left-hand side, the trunk is still together. Further down is where people have cut, axed, cleared, scraped to build a ramp. And what happens is they come down Fairy Lane, which comes up on the left. They jump up onto that cleared space, ride down and jump off the end. The problem is twofold. They're jumping across the main entrance from the Greenway. So it's very dangerous, but because they can't jump and turn left at the same time, they are making an extension that goes towards Blue Jay, the complex of Blue Jay. So once more, they're invading the space. So the next one, please. This is the comparison of the trails. The one in the center is a trail that comes just off where Fairy Lane is. The one on the left is one of the oldest paths in the forest. And I know this because when I purchased in the 1970s, that path continued across the middle of my property, across my neighbor's property, and came out just below Cummings Road because Sheridan really wasn't a road yet. And that's how people accessed the park. That trail is basically not being touched. People use it, but it's walkers that use that trail for the most part. And that's how all the trails looked until a little while ago in the park. Oh, thank you.
Just a heads up, you're at 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. And then the one on the right is a junction to that untouched trail. So next one, please. And then the one on the left comes out of Blue Jay and it's being started to be cleared. And the one on the right is cleared. And you can see the stump, the big one, but to the right are three smaller stumps and it's called the joint deck because people come in there to smoke. And while as an agent granola, I have no problem with having a toke here or there. My problem is a lit thing in the park. And okay, please, the next one. The cleared areas. So the one on the top right is in the northeast. The one on the bottom is in the southwest. And the one to the left is right beside a Fairy Trail while they're starting to, I presume, make an extension of a cleared area. Okay. Next, please. The one on the left is the biggest cleared area and it's probably 12 by 20 feet. And right beside it virtually is the one on the right. And that's how the vegetation used to be. That's on the path leading towards my place. And next, please. And the three park entrances, the one on the left is Sheridan, the one on the right is Blue Jay. And next, please. And that last one goes out to Lerwick Road. And because people don't use that as part of their speedway, it's hardly being used at all. And it's at least not degraded. And lastly, please. The picture on the right is yours. The picture on the left is mine. You will see by counting the fence posts that it's taken from exactly the same place. I took mine after the first snowfall had melted this year. The one on the right is yours, and it was obviously taken after the Greenway bike path has been put in. It's exactly the same spot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so I was trying to keep up with all the requests. I did hear a few different requests in there. And so I guess maybe one of my questions is whether or not you talked with staff yet regarding these issues.
Well, that's why we want the input from Shane and company, because obviously they know the places that would be appropriate.
Mhm.
And anybody else from the city for that matter. But it's just that the destruction is continuing at such a rapid rate that we need to do something, I think, to preserve that. And we're not asking the city for any money either.
Okay.
What we are asking for is just your approval for a space, but the space would be recommended by by your staff.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks very much for the presentation. I've walked through the forest a number of times, and I'm just curious about the items that are put there. Are they being placed by families on their own, or is it all happening through school classes, which was kind of the impression I got? And in which case, I'm wondering if we need to reach out to the schools about the appropriateness of certain materials.
Mostly, I think, Mr. Hillian, they're being done by individual families, that kind of thing. In the summertime, you do get the kindergarten classes come down with some, but mostly it's individuals, because on Monday, it's a lot fuller than it was on Friday.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks very much for raising these issues. I think what we would need to do is consult with our staff to find out what sort of monitoring is going on and how they might be able to work with you. I'll just state my own bias, which is that anytime there's a group of citizens that come forward and want to do something useful and constructive for their community, particularly in regard to preserving the natural environment, I think it's a wonderful idea, and I hope we can do something to work with you.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks, Councillor Hillian and Councillor McCollum.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for the presentation. It's great to hear from someone that's so engaged in looking after the forest near their backyard. I just had a question around the demonstration garden. You're talking about maybe demonstrating some mason bee houses and that type of thing, which I think is a great idea. Our new OCP also speaks to developing placemaking and community gardens, and I think that idea really fits with the kinds of things we want to see in different neighborhoods around the community. And it's great that you're already thinking ahead to the community foundation granting. My question was, do you see that as being something that's kind of looked after by your neighborhood group, or would that be something that you would want the city to ultimately be responsible for? Just wondering how you see that,
Yeah.
like 5 years from now.
Well, 5 years willing that I'm still there and the other people are still around, we would be looking after it. And the plants and things, actually, I have 2.5 acres. So the actual plants themselves, under the guidance of somebody from the city, can be dug up and put in there. And it would be at what their recommendation was. But on those trails, they're yanking out all the huckleberry and the salal and the Oregon grape, and it's going. So we need to show people what native plants are.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor McCollum. And yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me some of the things you were talking about a little bit. I know when I've taken my kids out to Miracle Beach or even down through the States where they've got the ranger programs and things like that. Sounds very interesting. Based on the conversation here, though, I think in talking with staff, it does sound like it's something that could be handled at a staff level, I think. So I think that's
Okay, my only reason for coming here is because I didn't want to approach the foundation for a neighborhood grant without getting permission from the city to be able to put in those 3 things. So
just 1 second, Mr. Garbutt.
I guess I would say thank you through Mayor and Council. Appreciate the delegation. We have an implementation plan upcoming from the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which includes program development for a number of our parks, including this park. So I would suggest that council is going to receive that work. This is an important proposal, and Mr. Rushton, Ms. Saunders will be back at that point to work through this, and we will take that information and brief back.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your presentation today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And next we have a Comox Valley Emergency Program presentation. Okay. And
Yes, thank you through the mayor to council. I'd like to introduce Russell Dyson, the CAO for the Comox Valley Regional District, and Howie Siemens, the Emergency Program Coordinator for the Comox Valley Regional District. And they're here to share some findings from the Fracture on Fifth exercise that we had earlier in the fall, and also talk about the direction that the Comox Valley Emergency Management Program would like to go. So turn it over to you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Kurt, and thank you to Mayor, Council, staff members, and members of the public. I'm Russell Dyson, and I'm here with Howie. We have a brief PowerPoint presentation, as Kurt mentioned, to talk about the program and some of the activities that have taken place, including Fracture on the Fifth, and then talk to you about the regionalization of the service, which is currently provided on a contract basis to the municipalities, and we're looking at the potential of transforming that. So I'll hand it over to Howie, and then I'll wrap it up, and we'll both be available to answer any questions.
Thanks, Russell. So we just go into the next slide, please. So I just want to give you a bit of the service fundamentals of the program itself. Some of you, I don't get a chance to come and meet very often. Some of you sit at the board for the CVRD, so we have a different relationship. But so the overall guidance of our program is from the Provincial Emergency Program Act, which is under review, modernization right now with the province. We've been waiting, and we've heard spring of 2023. We might hear something about that. So fingers crossed, which is our guiding document. So it really will tell us what we need to do in our emergency operations centers and forward moving with the program. Our role, as I'm manager of emergency programs, and I have Carrie McIntyre as our emergency planning coordinator. We look after the administration and advanced planning for the program with a regional view. So for representing all local governments of electoral areas, and we work very closely with the Comox First Nations as a part of that. Participants in our program through bylaw is our elected areas. So they are direct participants through the service bylaw. And we provide services the same for electoral areas to local governments, City of Courtenay, Town of Comox, Village of Cumberland through service agreements, which are expiring at the end of this year. Our current governance model is the Comox Valley Emergency Program Administrative Committee, which is made up of all the CEOs, and the Comox First Nations do have a seat and a voice at that committee. Executive Committee, which is the committee of the whole for the CVRD, and then a policy group is really what supports the Emergency Operations Center for your local government or through a regional event, as we saw in COVID-19, where we all came together and we collaborated on that process, where representatives like the mayors, Comox First Nations leadership and chairs were a part of that. And right now, the only voting members of our program are electoral area directors. Next slide, please. So just another guiding framework of what we work under for the Emergency Program Act is the new thing that's laying out right now is the Sendai framework. So that is really the new focus of what emergency management, climate and readiness is doing. The old emergency management BC you're familiar with. We're looking at changing that into the Sendai framework based on an all society approach to doing emergency management and preparing communities. It is focused really at disaster reduction instead of what we've been doing for many, many years, is doing the response aspect and then trying to recover after the fact. We do still continue looking at the 4 pillars of emergency management, the mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. The guiding principles that we work under during an event is BSEMS, or the British Columbia Emergency Management System. There are response goals that help us define what our priorities are when we're in dealing with emergencies or disasters. We also look at the hazard, risk, and vulnerability analysis for the region, as well as we've looked at this for local government. So what is the impacts that you might see in your communities from hazards or risks such as earthquake, flooding, wildfires, et cetera. So we use that as our guiding documents to plan and advance plan and collaborate with other agencies in our program. Next slide, please. A key piece to what the emergency program supports is our volunteers, our public safety lifeline volunteers. So we have members of our emergency support services volunteers who actually go out and support small house fires or small events in teams of 2 or 3, to actually coordinating and planning for reception centers to be open. So the big evacuation center where people are sent to, guided to be able to be supported during a large event, to find their basic needs, shelter, food, et cetera. We also work very closely with our emergency communications team of volunteers who have been working diligently for the last 2 years to get this space here to be a regional emergency operations center radio room, which means being independent from any provincial structure, so we can be able to reach out to any community as we need, because after an earthquake, we've already realized, we realized that during our Fracture on Fifth earthquake exercise, is that we will probably be left on our own, and we'll be having to make sure we have a strong communication structure to be able to work in. And we also kind of indirectly support our Comox Valley Ground Search and Rescue. So we share a facility right now at Moray. We're transitioning away. I heard some good news the other night that they're actually got some funding to look at a new home, which is I was very thankful to have that go through. But we do support them in response. We provide food. We help them with the lodging of some of their search and rescue members in large scale. So again, a great partnership. Next slide, please. So just want to give you kind of a current idea of what we're working on right now. So we really focus on community readiness and advanced planning for response. So we have a committee of advanced planning. A lot of that work was done during, again, COVID, where we had the REC collaboration team, the essential services team that went out and worked together to help plan what we need to do as a region to ensure the public had the same messages occurring for that. One of the biggest ones working right now is the regional extreme weather advanced planning. So extreme cold, we're actually getting ready to do some opening some shelters tonight. But also just even the heat dome and processes like that. But it really came to light during our weather events, and we're going to see more of them, of the work that how well collaboration works and sharing our resources. We are just moving forward with lots of interest for our neighborhood emergency preparedness program. So building on that structure of what was in the past, and then engaging newer communities. And then our Fire Smart Preparedness program, which has just gone really well. We've been very successful, and I'm sure the fire chief has shared that with you. We are working very diligently to be financially responsible. So we do a lot of grant writing. A lot of our time is in the grant writing process. And so we have 2 of them on the go, well, 3 of them on the go, 2 of them under the emergency preparedness funding, and the other one through the UBC Community Resilient Grant. So those are just in the works right now, working with Fire Smart and initiatives to support our volunteers, as well as our Emergency Operations Center. Next slide, please. So what is really driving us right now is some new trends I want to share. So obviously, climate change is a big issue overall for all of us. We've been seeing, I've been doing this for 25 years and being with the Comox Valley for the 6 years and lived here for 17. I've seen the increases of extreme weather that's happening to us right now, and it's on us. So our workload last year in 2022 had really increased about heavy response processes that we had to do. And then just looking at what's coming down from the province, we're trying to prepare ourselves and be ready, but it's hard to be ready when you're not clear on what's coming, but we're setting structures in place and processes in place to do that. Next slide, please.
So from the Fracture on Fifth exercise, I just want to touch on this. We are going to release it and put it up on our website, but we found some really key initiatives from that. Is really about the regional collaboration was a big part of what the feedback came from. That was how teams felt more comfortable knowing a face from another local government before it was a large event. One of the goals that we're going to try to do is remove the 12 to 14-hour days within an emergency operations center for the wellness of everybody. So we don't do emergencies at that scale that often, is reduce it to a 7 or 8 hour shift so people can actually be able to better enjoy a disaster and emergency event without such a stress environment that they have to work in. And then the biggest common goal that came out of COVID-19, as well as the Fracture on Fifth, is the regional training. So lots more training. They wanted to build their comfort with that. So right now we're working on trying to build a multi-year training calendar that incorporates our public safety lifeline volunteers, our radio people, our EOC people, as well as general staff that have to support backfilling some of those positions as well. And then one of the other part is just working very closely with collaboration with some of our partners, like 19 Wing and the base, which we're involved right now with Exercise Totem with them. And that's been really a strong opportunity for us. Next slide, please. So I think this is yours, Russell.
Thank you very much. Just one more slide and then we'll open it up for questions, and that's talk about the regionalization of the service. Howie has demonstrated that over the last couple of years, we've really come together both at the political staff level, our volunteers and the various organizations that contribute to managing emergencies in our valley. And it's time and an opportunity to move forward with a strategy and a consolidation of our service as a regional service. And that's what we're proposing to you at this time. It's something that we've reviewed with your staff and CAOs and feel that this is the path forward. It's based on the premise that the program costs in the range of $750,000. Of that, the contribution of the city of Courtenay is in the range of $200,000. This is on the basis of what we currently have. As Howie mentioned, there are things to come. There's a new Emergency Program Act and amendments that may require more of us, but that in itself is another reason why we want to collaborate and work on this together in a regional service. Some of the advantages, Howie mentioned in the past, that the decision process on policies and such is only of the electoral areas. They are the participants in the regional service. We contract to you, the 3 municipalities. So by having a regional service, you'll have a vote at the table as all the other participants. It's just one of many of the attributes of this. We provided some correspondence to you to look at the costs and benefits of this, and we hope you will support it. The next steps in terms of this process is to hear from you, the municipalities, through your CAOs. I will meet with Jordan, Jeff, and Michelle in the next coming months to hear the feedback. We've done a presentation like this to the town of Comox, and we'll be doing the similar thing to Cumberland. If we all agree that regionalization is the service, then the electoral areas generate a bylaw that's presented to the board, and a formal request then comes to you, the council, to endorse a regional service. We hope to do all of that this year so that the regional service can be up and running for January 1st of 2024. In the meantime, I really wish to express my appreciation for your staff and your professionals, along with the other municipalities led by Howie and his team that collaborate. Fracture on the Fifth demonstrated that we can all come together as a community of volunteers, professionals, staff members, and otherwise, with great sound leadership of our municipal partners, to collaborate and see that the interests of our community are met during emergencies. Thank you for your time tonight. Both Howie and I are available for any questions.
Excellent. Really appreciate the presentation. I had one question just around voting structure. Is that something that is it going to be sort of one participant, one vote, or is it more complicated than that?
Yeah, the regional district has many different ways of voting. What is contemplated is the traditional voting where it is a weighted vote. Having said that, if the potential participants have any concerns, as with the Regional Park Service, we might look at alternatives. But my recommendation to the board would be go on the basis of the traditional voting of weighted vote.
Okay, thanks for that. And we do have a question or comment from Councillor Hillian.
No question. Thanks, Mayor. Just a comment. I think this is a logical transition as we grow and mature as a community. And to me, it makes perfect sense. I really appreciate you coming forward with this initiative and all the work that's gone into it, as well as the work that you and your staff do in relation to emergency preparedness. There's obviously an increased awareness of how incredibly important this is. And you've indicated, Howie, that we can expect the extreme weather events to continue. It makes total sense that we be prepared and put our community in the best state possible to respond to what may be to come. So thanks very much.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Hillian. I think those words were great. And we don't need to make any motions or decisions today. So we're going to let you guys find your way out. And I think you know your way around this building quite well.
Just thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate being in front of you all. Thank you.
Oh, again, to reiterate Councillor Hillian's comments, you guys have been doing a bang up job. So really appreciate it. All right, we're on to 6.11, a Pacific Salmon Foundation license agreement for McPhee Meadows. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that council approve the attached five-year license agreement dated January 1st, 2023 between the city and the Pacific Salmon Foundation for the licensed area on property having a legal description of PID 028 419910 lot 1. Plan VIP 88574, District Lot 118, Section 61.
Second.
All right, thanks so much. I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Garvin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Joy Chan is going to do an introduction for this short report. Over to you, Joy.
Thank you to the mayor, for the CAO, mayor, and council. This report purpose is to seek council's approval for a license agreement. The agreement will permit the Pacific Salmon Foundation and its partnering agent, BC Conservation Foundation, which I'll refer to the proponents, to install, maintain, and operate a passive integrated transponder antenna system on the lands adjacent to the Putland River, which is on city property known as the McPhee Meadows Nature Park. This request is to support the Survival Bottlenecks Study Marine Science Program in response to recent declines of salmon steelhead populations. The data collected will help guide mitigating activities to improve salmon and steelhead populations from hatcheries and wild stocks. Staff have identified the following requirements to the proponent before providing a recommendation to council. Approval from key interest holders such as KFN, Nature Trust BC, who is also the owner of the property, and also the McPhee family, who have donated the property to the city. Also to agree to enter an agreement outlining the various terms and conditions for the installation requests, such as maintenance, risk management, and insurance. Ensure all required permits are obtained, such as the KFN chip permit and provincial permits through DFO. As such, staff are asking council to consider their approval of a 5-year license agreement with an additional 5-year option to renew. It is a nominal fee of $1 per year for this license. This is below the current market value for the rental of unimproved lands as determined by a land appraisal in 2020 and adjusted through CPI. This assistance is provided as a result of $7.92 per year. Should council approve the license, city is required to publish notice for the census to meet legislative requirements established by the community charter. In consideration of the ecological, economic, and cultural impacts of this study, with the CEO recommendation before you, we are asking council to support this license agreement request. And I am happy to take questions now.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the report. Seems like a good project. I just wasn't clear from the report whether the consultation with Comox and the McPhee family and potentially the other neighbors and the Nature Trust people has actually taken place or not, and if it has, if they're in support of this project.
Thank you through the CEO, Mayor, through Council. We have consulted with Comox First Nations through the Guardian program, also through the CHIP, which is the Cultural Heritage Investigations Permit Program, and that if there are any artifacts that are found through the installation, that they follow the process as determined by KFN of where they are deposited. We did meet with the proponents, with the McPhee family, and discussed the location of the antenna installation and where it would impact the property. In terms of the neighboring properties, no, we did not discuss this with the adjacent neighbors.
Okay, but the McPhees were supportive of this?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
All right, Councillor Jolicoeur.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I'm also supportive of this. Just a question for staff. You do mention the consideration of potential impact on recreational users of the river, and the foundation has stated that there is another similar setup in the Cowichan River. You know, without having any images of what it actually looks like, is there any sort of assurances other than them simply saying there's been no incidences at another location? You know, I'm thinking about the seasonality of the height of the river, and different folks who, you know, maybe are cold bathing in the winter when the water is lower. And so I'm just wondering if you can speak to any further technical details around the risk to recreational users.
Thank you to CEO, Mayor, and Council. The actual system is made of a heavy plastic type material. It sits quite low on the bottom of the riverbed. There's about 30 centimeters that they need to dig down to install. So it's actually inserted into the riverbed quite on par. It'd be similar to having at the same level as rocks. So if there are tubers, if people kayakers going over and there's rocks there, it'd be the same or below the height of that. When we confirmed with the proponents that with normal use, there's no interference with recreational users.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that detailed explanation on how the installation happened. So I think that has satisfied most of the questions here. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Next, we have the Downtown Courtenay Business Improvement Association temporary license of occupation, and Councillor McCollum.
I'll move that council approve the attached temporary license of occupation agreement between the city and the Downtown Courtenay Business Improvement Association for the licensed area located on property having a civic address of 580 Duncan Avenue, Courtenay, BC, and a legal description of PID 028-799-925 Lot B, Section 61, Comox District Plan, EPP 15696.
All right, it's been moved in second, and I'll pass it back over to Mr. Garvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Chan will give another overview, please.
Thank you to the CEO, Mayor, and through Council. The purpose of this report is to seek Council's approval for a temporary license of occupation with the Downtown Business Improvement Association, the society, for approximately 132 square foot office on the second floor of the Center for the Arts. The office will be used as an administrative office, and they'll be also allowed access to DCBI to the shared boardroom and kitchen facilities. Well, the first section of the report talks about the society's mandate, and it's to provide support for downtown businesses and enhance a vibrant business community through leadership and advocacy. DCBI also contributes towards the community's arts, culture, and heritage to the following. They allocate $30,000 of their expenses towards supporting downtown events such as Market Days, Downtown Summer Farmers Market, Moonlight and Magic, and the Comox LA Christmas Parade. The city does provide in-kind financial support through traffic control and road closures through the Public Works Services Department. And the city provides financial grant of $5,000 through the gaming funds on an annual basis. They provide a volunteer member on the July 1st event committee. They also adjudicate street entertainment permit applications. DCBIA has also expressed interest in the development of public art policy and mural policy, which will affect the downtown property owners. This policy is developed through the strategic cultural planning process. And by including DCBIA in these conversations, it will help create awareness of cultural program and policy issues, which should be considered with DCI members. Activities such as murals installed on private property as adjacent to Indigenous artwork. So in a letter to Mayor and Council dated May 31st, 2022, DCBI requested that if a small office were to become available at the Center of the Arts, that they be considered. Staff met with the existing occupants, that's the Comox Valley Arts and the Comox Valley Art Gallery, to discuss if there could be space accommodated for the DCBI. Comox Valley Arts agreed to move out of a small office and consolidate to existing space that it currently occupies, and that's the former Comox Valley Economic Development space. Staff proceeded with the request by considering the following factors. Currently, there is an increased community service-related office and programming space requests. There are no vacancies to accommodate said requests. There's no policy to address priorities and allocation for space. In the previous council of the day, there's an outstanding direction, which for the second floor of the Center of the Arts. And in October 2003 council meeting, city staff were asked to pursue other revenue generating opportunities for the building and to develop a building management policy. These are two outstanding items. Another thing to be considered is historically the second floor of the Center of the Arts has been occupied by arts, culture, heritage, and economic development organizations. The city also lacks a property disposition policy. With that, we are proposing a temporary subsidized license of occupation, which is guided by the recreation fees and charges framework. So if council member back in 2022, we presented the recreation fees and charges framework, in which the level of subsidization is connected to a benefits continuum. So the more benefits that a organization provides to the community, the higher the level of subsidy or tax support. So in this case, we are considering a substation based on 25% user fee and 75% tax support. The market rate for a rental office of this size currently is $600. At 25% of the market rate, this would be $150 per month. Should council approve this assistance, again, there'd be legislative requirements to provide public notice. So in consideration of DCBIA's willingness to support arts and culture and economic development through its programming and collaborate with other core cultural service providers, and its use complementary to the Center of the Arts historic use, we are asking council to support this subsidized temporary license of occupation. And I'm open to take questions now.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the report. The two strategic initiatives are identified that need to be completed before we can get a recommendation that might make this a more permanent arrangement. And that seems to make sense. I don't know whether you want to comment specifically on those, but I'm guessing that staff are envisioning that we may have other office requirements related to those strategic initiatives that might take precedence, but we're not necessarily saying that this wouldn't continue as an arrangement given whatever may come out of those initiatives. Would that be safe to assume?
Mr. Garten.
Thank you. Thanks for the question through the mayor to Councillor Hillian. There is some moving pieces at this point. I think at this time, because of the availability and the role, we've made it clear to the DCBIA, they were a former tenant of that same space, and they made some choices in the past that we're in a position to support them now, and we do need to do some important policy work. I can advise, and council is aware, that there are a number of organizations that cross the spectrum of social service to community service, et cetera, that are looking for space. And we need to really understand what's possible, available, accessible, and we would likely be able to utilize the work that council is doing on our strategic lenses as outlined by the OCP. Long way of saying we need to develop that work, and it is a temporary arrangement at this point.
Fair enough, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Helene and Councillor McCollum.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a question just around how we arrived at our assessment of the benefits continuum. When I first just was doing a quick read through of the council agenda, I actually reversed the ratio when I was reading the report, thinking that 75% of what the DCBIA does is just, support its own membership, and 25% would be, that community benefit. But then going back and rereading, I see that staff had the ratio reversed compared to what I was thinking. And it had me, just having a quick look on their website at what their mission statement is. And it doesn't speak to arts and culture, although of course I have no doubts in the assessment of how they do support arts and culture downtown. I mean, I attend all these events, and I think they're really important for the vibrancy of our city. But this is a fairly new model that we're using, and I think it's great. I'm really supportive of it, but I just want to understand a little bit better how we apply that ratio, if this is something we're going to be doing regularly through our operations with different city facilities.
Thank you to the CAO, Mayor, and Council. So we determined this rate based on, again, trying to look at what the nonprofit community rate recommendations through the fees and charges study. From an equity perspective, that's actually the rate that the other small tenants are paying currently. Mind you, these leases have existed for quite a long time and do need to be reviewed. Being that this is a temporary arrangement for a year, I think we need to consider and look at a few things and develop the policy before we finalize what the actual subsidization would be. At this time, without policy, this is what the rate will be determined, and worked with DCBI as what they could pay.
Okay. Thanks.
They also, sorry, and also they are understanding of the situation at hand, and they acknowledge that at the end of the year that there could be an increase, or depending on policy at that time.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor McCollum. And with that, I think we've answered all the questions and comments. So all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And we're on to financial services for the signing authority update. And Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that council rescind all previous banking, investment, and financial transaction signing authority appointments for Annie Berard, former manager of financial planning, payroll, and business performance, and appoint the following individuals in positions of the city as signing authority for the city in regard to all banking, investment, and financial transactions. Krista McClintock, manager of finance, Renata Wicca, manager of financial planning, payroll, and business performance.
All right, now pass it over to Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you, through the Mayor to Council. Mr. Langemeyer is going to do a short introduction of this report.
Wonderful. Hello, Mayor and Council. Can you all hear me?
Yes, very well.
Excellent. This will be a nice long presentation. I am happy to announce that Annie Berard is the new CFO for Cumberland. So she has left the city, and the rippling effect is we've had a few changes in finance, and we need to update our signing authority. And that's everything.
All right, and there's been, the motion's already made. Councillor Hillian, you had a.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to publicly extend our gratitude to Annie Berard for her service to the city. She was an excellent employee who served us well, and it's certainly Cumberland's gain that she has taken over that role out there. So thanks for the report from Mr. Langenmeyer, and best wishes to the new people in charge of our finances.
So thanks, Councillor Hillian. And with that, we'll take the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. All right. And now we get into the CBRD Regional Social Development Grant Service feedback. There is a recommendation, but we can just, did staff want to speak to it first, and then we can, maybe we'll figure out a. Mr. Garbutt, did you want to?
Yeah, sure. I'm just having a little challenge on the iPad side. Thank you, through Mayor and Council. At the regional board, there's been some deliberations, and we've received this correspondence from the chair looking for feedback. We are all experiencing requests, and I think this is an approach at a staff level. We've been consulting through the CAOs, and I believe the request here is to give some feedback prior to the potential consideration of service establishment, deliberations, policy, and the like that would be developed under a potential new future service. We would come back with a staff report if council would direct us at that time. And I think it would be incumbent upon us we're going to be doing some work in 2023 on social development needs inside the city, our role, et cetera. This was a study that was deferred because the city took over administration of this Strengthening Communities grant. And with that, I'm happy for any questions of council. But this is clearly some important work that's the community's been talking about quite a bit for the last at least 4 or 5 years.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that. And Councillor Moore.
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation that council direct staff to write a report providing an analysis of the proposed regional social development grant service.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor, any opposed? That passes unanimously, and we're on to internal reports and correspondence. We do have the 4 management reports. So I don't know if there are any questions that are specific to the management reports themselves. Excellent. All right, and Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I did have a question with regards to the Development Services Management Report, and that was just if we could get an update on the staffing situation. Obviously, there's a lot of projects underway, and I know that the department is stretched, so I'd appreciate that update, please.
All right, Mr. Garbutt.
Thank you, through the mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hillian. We're currently in recruitment for the director and the 2 vacant management positions, the manager of development approvals and the development engineering manager. We've advertised those positions, and we're in the process of working through it. We hope it's our intention that we likely fill the director position prior to finalizing the manager positions. They'll be critical right-hand advisors to the director. We do have the management positions covered through Mr. Paul Preston is acting as our interim manager of development engineering, and we have a consultant named Bridget Reynolds who is assisting us in, and Nancy Goddard, who is our also interim manager of development approvals. So although we have seats empty, we've taken steps with competent folks to help guide us while we're on our search.
Thanks for that. And if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, I also had some questions regarding Public Works.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 2 questions. One, I read a publication that spoke about the Dingwall Stairs project and indicated that It's going to have a number of features, including a running trail. And I just wondered if Mr. Shaw might want to highlight that project, given that we have just received positive news about a grant. And then I also wondered if we had received any news about Malcolm Morrison Park and the grant application there, the brownfield rehabilitation that we're planning in that section of the city. Thanks.
Thank you for the question through the CAO to Mayor and Council. Appreciate Councillor Hillian for the question. Yeah, great news about the Dingwall Stairs through the BC Active Transportation Grant. We were successful in the application for 50% funding of that capital project. So we'll see that come forward in the near future through capital planning and council adoption of the 5-year capital plan. And you're right, there are some great features that go along with that. I think that has been a project that's been on the books through the Parks Master Plan for quite some time. It'll be a great addition to the assets within the city in terms of movability within that particular corridor as another avenue adjacent to Ryan Road. So it is a staircase. There is an informal trail network that will be parallel to it with a bit of a switchback, provide people an opportunity to also use another mechanism of mobility as they move up that staircase or adjacent to that staircase. There will also be a small gutter rail or a gutter pan adjacent to the staircase to allow people to travel with their bikes beside them so they can move effectively up the staircase and down. Some benches, some lookouts, there's some pretty good views from that area as well, so that will be advantageous. And one of the key points of success for our application this time was a renewal of the design to include lighting within the corridor to provide safety and ensure that the movement of traffic through that particular corridor in the evening time is secure and reduces risk. So it's a great project and we're looking forward to seeing that one to come to fruition. In terms of Malcolm Morrison Senior Park and the environmental strategy through brownfield development, we have not heard anything back in regards to that. You'll still see that one be reflected within the capital planning for this year as well to move forward with the appropriate mitigation measures that have been outlined in our in our environmental management plan that was undertaken last year by staff.
So thank you, Councillor Hillian, for the questions. And we have Councillor Warren.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Just going back to the development services. I did have an inquiry recently from someone who was involved in the OCP, many of the public engagement events, and I think had received a call or some kind of communication at one point about the potential of the implementation plan. And I know we did discuss this at strategic planning, but I just wanted to kind of get the answer from staff publicly that at this point we haven't made a decision about whether there's going to be an advisory committee or anything like that, as far as I know, because they were wondering whether there would be the opportunity to be part of an advisory committee around implementation. So I just thought if we could answer that question, that would be great, and then people will know what kind of the tentative plan is going forward. Thanks.
Your Worship, Mayor and Council, correct in that we've not had a lot of progress yet in terms of the actual plan for implementation of the OCP. We're cognizant of the fact that Council's expectations are for a robust engagement program, and we will be building that in. We're starting to identify some of the specific elements, for instance, the zoning bylaw changes that we're going to be needing. And there's two approaches there. One, we could go and do everything all at once. That'd take about 2 years. We kind of think that we have some more urgent requirements, so we're going to be proceeding on a phased basis with the most critical conflict areas first, the ones that we're finding on a daily basis, and we're going to be getting those out of the way. And that, of course, will require all public consultation processes as those are all bylaw amendments. We've been looking at some other jurisdictions in terms of some of the kinds of engagement processes that they've been using in OCPs, and there's a whole range out there, from advisory committees to task forces on specific topics. I expect that the new management team, when they're fully in place within a couple of months, will be bringing back a very robust program for all of those, Mel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that. So folks can stay tuned, I guess, in terms of opportunity to engage. I just wanted to, I remembered this as you were talking, that I was at the LGLA conference last week, and actually had probably at least 2 or 3 people say that they're embarking on their OCP process and that they're basically using our community as a model, even though we haven't necessarily implemented a lot yet. We have plans to do so, just in terms of the process of the OCP and what we've come up with as a visionary document. There were folks across the island that were really impressed with the work that our staff did. So just wanted to give kudos to you that we made a few made us a wave, I guess, on the island with our work on that. Thank you.
If I could just offer a small comment, it's somewhat incorrect to say that we're not implementing the OCP yet. We are every day in our conversations with applicants and other agencies, as well as our own work internally. We're reminding ourselves of the new requirements, and we're actually imposing some of those requirements through our development approval processes as we speak. So we are engaged. We're identifying the next steps along the way. You know, I think the council respects the fact that an official community plan of that magnitude will take years to implement all of its aspects, but we've already started the process of picking away at the small steps along the way. So we're well involved in that, and no council's intense.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Morin, and Councillor Jolicoeur.
I've got a question for you, so you might not want to leave. Just a comment and 2 questions, just for community members who are interested in the Public Works Management Report. There's a fair bit of civic upgrades of our facilities that we're doing, which I think is really exciting for those who access our civic facilities. So just, it's really nice to see so much of that work planned out to be done this year. I guess my first question for the Development Management Report, you know, we heard during the election a lot of passion from the development community, and I'm seeing actually quite a lot of action items here with the development community, and specifically the subdivision bylaw update. So I'm wondering if staff can speak to the collaboration that's happening with the development community and our bylaw updates.
Your Worship and members of council, we know that there's a lot of knowledge and experience in using our processes out there, and we're trying to tap into that to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hosted a session with the 3 consulting firms who are the most active in the community, working both for the city and for the private development sector. And we had a really good session with them a couple of weeks ago, where we suggested to them some new steps we could be taking to adjust some of our processes and speed things up, and delay the introduction or the requirement for them to submit certain levels of details until later on in the process and things like that. I think it's fair to say that they welcomed the opportunity to have that conversation. In fact, they welcomed it so much that they asked us that we do this on a quarterly basis. So we've already started to schedule the next one. They've also offered to submit to us some recommendations with respect to process changes that they see could be beneficial while still in meeting the intent of the city's policies. So we're actively engaged with them on an ongoing basis. The next step will be to take a broader conversation to the actual developers themselves. That's something that we'd like to get our little house in order a bit better than it has been in the past before we start with that. But it's our intent in the next quarter to take that step as well.
Great. Thank you. And it's really good to hear that we're working so closely with them. If I got one more question, Mayor, if that's okay. It's for fire services. And we heard recently some of the call data and the work that our fire department's doing, the really good work that our fire department's doing. And I see here the mental health resiliency program on the management report. I'm wondering for our citizens who might be a little concerned around the intensity of the work, the type of work that our volunteer firefighters are engaging with in the community, how what this program is about and how you think it's going to support your volunteers and your staff.
Thank you through the CEO to mayor and council. Pretty much the program, we're just trying to provide our members with some skills that will help them manage what they're experiencing out in the field, and also make sure that they're aware of the resources that are available to them should they, be challenged by one of the events that they participated in. Some of the things that, and again, we've had these in place for a while. In terms of, when we return from calls, having a debriefing, talking to the crews, again, going over the incident itself, checking in on them, and then making sure that they're aware of if they need to talk to somebody, that people will be made available for them. The other things that we're doing now is starting to educate our crews on what they're experiencing out in the field, whether it be through people that are having some mental health issues, could be substance abuse or whatnot, and just to, how to recognize the signs, and also how to, deal with the individual, because obviously the approach that you would use on a person that's on a stimulant versus a depressant are two totally different things. So having that education and being able to identify these situations and how to effectively deal with them lessens the amount of stress that they feel, the helplessness that they feel, and it just goes a long way in hopefully maintaining and developing some mental health resiliency.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Appreciate that, Councillor Jolicoeur. And I think that takes us through the management reports. All those in favor? All right. Any opposed? I'm not sure we even need to vote on those, actually. Yeah. Next, we have change of the privacy legislation. 8.5. All right, and I'll pass it over to staff.
Ms. Proton is going to speak to this item, please.
All right.
Thanks. I don't have a ton to add to the staff report, but I do enjoy talking about privacy and access to information. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councillor McCullough.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just had a question. There was an acronym that was used that wasn't defined, and I am not familiar with it. PIAs, process for completing and documenting PIAs. Privacy, I assume, is the P, perhaps.
Correct. That's a privacy impact assessment. So that's something you'd fill out when you have a concern that there will be significant impacts to privacy, and the province is asking that we complete them for nearly everything now.
Whether or not there's been privacy breach, just for all potential risks, is that what that means?
I'll find the definition here. So they are now privacy impact assessments are now required for all new initiatives, which includes any enactment, system, project, program, or activity, or any of those that has had a significant change, or is a significant change is proposed. So that would be like a PIA for every bylaw, a PIA for every program at the rec center, a PIA for everything we do.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that clarification.
Thanks for that, Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to staff for the work. This sort of work is tedious and goes unheralded, but is obviously important. The report talks about the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and I just did have a question about the frequency of Freedom of Information requests and the time involved in putting those together by staff.
We don't have a huge volume of access to information requests. I think in 2022, we had about 18 to 20 access to information requests. And some of them are really simple, where you'll get someone's looking for a fire incident report, and I send it to Kurt and he has the document back to me within half an hour sometimes. And we know exactly what we're looking for. We redact it and get it out. Those ones are really quick. And I would say they still take about an hour of staff time. And then we have ones where we had one recently where we received 2,600 pages back from staff when we sent the request out. And we've had to extend just because of the volume of material. So as it says in the briefing note, we don't have the staff resources to deal with that kind of request. So we are working with a contractor as needed just because of the amount of time that it takes to go through those.
Right, and could you just share what process, if any, there is for getting back to council on these? Because from time to time, we're asked for all the information that we have in relation to a particular issue, but we don't necessarily get any detail on what is being sought or what the result was. So I'm just wondering if you could clarify those aspects.
So I think the first one was reporting back to council when we have asked you for documents or records related to an FOI. Yeah, I would say typically there isn't reporting back. And to provide a little bit more context about FOI requests, we don't have to know who's requesting it. We don't have to know why they're requesting the information. And sometimes we do know that just because of, we know what's going on in the community, we know the context of something, but people can request whatever they want and we deal with them the same way unless it involves personal information. Typically, we don't do a lot of reporting back either, like number of pages provided, that kind of thing. But if council is curious about that, we could try to provide more information. Typically, we just prepare the documents that are responsive and send them back to the applicant. If there was anything politically sensitive, we would be informing staff, so Jeff or Kate would be aware, and they would share with council.
Okay, so there's no barrier to council knowing more about the nature of the issue if curious in any given case.
We can report back things like the number of requests. If there was something that popped out as, we're receiving 3 times the volume of requests for fire incident reports, we'd probably be discussing that on a staff level and sharing it back with council as needed.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Garber.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councilor Hillian, this is great questions because often these are a little bit puzzling. We have these kind of requests and some of them have confidentiality related to them. In the past, there's been kind of summary documents provided back from the Office of the Privacy Commissioner to municipalities about the activities that occurred inside their municipality. And my apologies, I'm not familiar if that had been shared with council in the past. They are addressed to me, I believe, as the city manager. Can you correct?
Would that be for the ombudsperson office?
Well, I have seen this in. Regardless, if we get some summary information back from the commissioner, we'll certainly circulate that to council. I've seen that before as well. The ombudsperson sometimes also provides things back. It's not always that we have ombudsperson complaints in a year, so we may not have any information to report back on that.
Yeah, thanks. I'm certainly not trying to create any extra work for staff, just a curiosity with some of the ones that come up from time to time. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian. And I'll get an update from the ombudsman, and every update I've gotten has been there's no issues. So they're quite happy, I think, with interactions with staff and their ability to communicate the information out expeditiously, even though there may be thousands of documents. So, all right, that being said, did we move and second that, or was it receipt? I think it was for receipt. So I'm going to dispense a receipt if somebody would like to move the recommendation. Oh, actually, that's all it was. Sorry. All those in favor? I'm catching up here. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, we'll get into council reports. Councillor Cole Hamilton will be quick. Councillor Hillian.
Thanks, Mayor. 2 items of notes. First of all, I had the privilege of being elected for a second term as chair of the Sewage Commission. And in that capacity, attended a briefing meeting with the new chief and council of Comox First Nation, along with the regional district chair and staff. last Wednesday, and basically to update them on the new conveyance project and the implications. And it was a good session, and look forward to engagement with the city, with the new chief and council, who obviously have a lot on their plate as they get up to speed with all the work they have to do. Secondly, I'd like to acknowledge that on Sunday, I attended the celebration of life for former Comox Mayor Russ Arnott, and I just want to acknowledge the town of Comox and the family and friends of former Mayor Arnott. They did an excellent job of putting that event together. About 350 people, and our mayor was actually there helping with the audiovisual requirements, and I think it was a good send off for our former colleague. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Hillian. Councillor Zolliker.
Yeah, just one, there are two things to add. Myself and Councillor Morin and Councillor Cole Hamilton attended the LGLA elected officials seminar last week. And Councillor Morin already hinted at some of the good nuggets that we learned at that, and really trying to bring that into our work here at the city of Courtenay. And it was really nice to also hear about some of the things that we are actually leading the way relative to some of our colleagues on the island. The other thing that I wanted to mention for the public, given the interest that we've been receiving, is last week there was also a session for elected officials hosted by UBCM, the Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction, and the BC branch of the RCMP on decriminalization. And I wanted to share just a few really interesting, quite clear language that was shared. And I should also mention that BC CDC was also a presenter. And they spoke really clearly around the role of municipal governments, the risks to health. There's a lot of conversation right now, a lot of comments around potential risks of what this might mean for our community. And I think that the interesting thing that I took away from this is that there's quite a consensus between public health bodies, the ministry, and the RCMP that this is something that is going to be addressed from the healthcare perspective. The ministry highlighted some things of note, new decriminalization project managers within each of the health authorities to help navigate the changes to the healthcare system, increase to treatment facilities, funding with each of the health authorities across the province, training for RCMP, frontline staff. And then lastly, I think the interesting piece here that I wanted to just share is the legislative components, and the ministry and BC CDC were quite clear as well around the role of municipal government and potential public health bylaws. And really, they reiterated the importance of working really closely with our medical health officer locally in any kind of conversation around public health bylaws, and advised that the medical health officers are quite ready and willing to work closely with municipalities. So I did want to just add that it was a really useful presentation. It was about 2 hours long, and the ministry has committed to releasing the guidelines by the end of March. This was their kind of preliminary presentation, as there was a lot of comments and concerns from municipalities across the province. So looking forward to receiving that guideline. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Councillor McCullum.
Yeah, just one update for me today. We held a strategic planning session yesterday for the Recreation Commission, where the commission reassessed the goals from the previous term and whether or not they were still relevant going forward. And those were kind of workshopped throughout the day. It was a pretty successful day, and that work is meant to inform and help guide some major capital decisions that are going to be explored in the next session, which is next week, around arena or ice development, artificial turf development, and the aquatics study that we discussed here a few weeks ago. So, but yeah, it was a really good day of engagement, and I think we managed to stay fairly on topic most of the time. And I think generally there was fairly good consensus right across the board. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what comes forward next week. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. And Councillor Moran.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I'll have most of my February activities in my February report, but I did want to highlight one thing. Last night, the World Community Film Festival folks hosted the film Love in the Time of Fentanyl. And then there was a panel discussion afterwards. And this film was made in the downtown east side and really looked at the work of the folks on the front lines, many of whom had been working out of the Overdose Prevention Society site for 10 plus years, and pretty incredible how they'd formed this little community of workers, but also in terms of supporting the folks in that area. It was, there was a bit of sadness, obviously, to the film, but a lot of hope and a lot of happy moments as well, just in terms of the resilience of people. So if you have a chance to watch that film, the World Community folks they have it available online until February 25th, and you can go to their website, which is worldcommunity.ca, and you can purchase online tickets to watch it. So if you did miss it, it is a great film to watch. I just wanted to touch on the panel discussion after. There were people from the community who work directly with people who are struggling with mental health and addiction. And one notable person was Colby Young. I wanted to mention he's the program lead for the Tailgate Toolkit project, and works for the Vancouver Island Construction Association. And the point was made last night that certainly almost every community in the province, we have a visible population of folks who are unhoused, who are struggling with many different things, including substance use, sometimes brain injury and other things. And that's very tragic, and people are dying on the streets. But in fact, most of the drug poisoning deaths are the majority are men in their productive work lives. Most of them are employed, and Colby Young has been doing presentations to the construction industry to really encourage men to access help, because most of them are suffering in silence, and often their families and colleagues don't even know that they're struggling with these issues. And so I thought that was really important to note, that that many people across the community are struggling with substances and the impacts of that, and the impacts of the toxic drug supply. It was also noted that primarily, I know that Councillor Jolicoeur has brought this up, but we do have a safe consumption site here, but it doesn't, it's not available for people who use substances through inhalation, and we really do need that inhalation site. Another really, I'm almost at the end, but another really important piece of this is that there has not been one death in North America, I believe, at a supervised site. So we have an average of 6 people a day dying to the toxic drug poisoning crisis, many of them in their own homes, but nobody has died in one of those sites. So it really, really, I think, highlights the importance of having those safe sites. And I know that we've had presentations from parents here who have lost their children, and some of them have accessed services and then have relapsed or whatever, and then they're gone. And it's a sad statement, but dead people don't recover. So we really, I think, need to support those services that can help people perhaps get to the place of being able to access help if they want and need it. So anyway, just putting that out there, if you have a chance to watch the film, it really does paint a more accurate picture of the extent of the problem. And it's certainly not just isolated to one demographic of people in our community. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councillor Morin, and it does speak to the real need to reduce that stigma so that people are willing to reach out for help. Going back a little bit here, I did attend my coldest night of the year team walk, which is actually Councillor Cole Hamilton was on the team as well. But wanted to really mention that on Saturday, February 25th at 4 p.m. at Native Sons Hall, for those that want to get involved, you can still go out and participate. And right now they're at 60% of their goal of $200,000, which I'm sure they will surpass like they have in previous years. I also, over the last, quite a few weeks, I would say, but more specifically in the last week or two, been meeting with the BIA. I met with Karen McKinnon and Bruce Curtis, who are the incoming and outgoing executive directors of the Community Justice Center, and really working towards a conversation through the BIA with the downtown business owners. So, the Community Justice Center has agreed to actually facilitate that, which is great news. So just working towards an actual date and then a format for that. And on Valentine's Day, I was on the, I guess it's called the Love Bus with the Flower Man, and going around providing chocolates and flowers to people around the Comox Valley. It was a very positive, uplifting event. We were able to stop by a few schools, uninvited, yet they were welcoming to us nonetheless. And it was just a really good positive time. So, and lastly, as was mentioned, I attended Russ Arnott's celebration of life on Sunday. And as someone who was one of the very first people I met when I moved to town 20 years ago, volunteered with him quite a bit through Rotary. We sailed together. He was a really good friend. It was a tough time. So he was really focused on our communities, and really proud of his family and some of the things that he was able to accomplish. So with that, we'll move into council resolutions 10.1. Whose light went on? Oh, Councillor Jolicoeur.
So this is the resolution to appoint acting mayor for March 2023. So I move the recommendation that council appoint Councillor McCollum as acting mayor for the month of March 2023.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. On to 10.3. Councillor McCollum.
I'll move that council authorize Mayor Bob Wells and Councillor Evan Jolicoeur to attend the UBC Housing Summit with expenses to be paid by the city.
All right. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. So moved. 3 minute